Thank you for coming to our interview. My name is Donna Safarova. I'm the vice president, and
my name is Xander Vox. I'm the president.
Well, thank y'all for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
perfect. Thank you. So can you just give us a little introduction about yourself, just what your name is, and just for everyone to know who you are?
Hi, I am Dr. Natoshia Anderson, otherwise known as the Nerdy STEM Queen, otherwise known as Dr. Toshia. My background is I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm a Black woman mechanical engineer who has spent her career trying to reproduce myself. And so I do that in a myriad of different ways, through first by working with schools, nonprofits, and other organizations to help them develop a comprehensive plan, which involves people of color and making sure that they have a diverse clientele and diverse employees. Two, I develop STEM curriculum programs and make sure that they are implementable and across the gamut, whether that's professionally, all the way down to civic and church organizations. Three, I speak on stages and give interviews and have my own podcast where I highlight diverse women in STEM. And underneath all that, I've written 2 children's books that really focus and introduce students of all ethnies and races to STEM and engineering terminology and those kinds of things. So this is my world.
Thank you. So just the very first question, what led you to pursue mechanical engineering?
Okay, you come out the box with the questions. Okay. So that was sort of a long, windy, twisty road. What you need to know to begin is that my dad was a mechanic. His whole life, he did it for almost 40 years. And so when my weekends were spent in the garage learning how to pick apart a car engine, many weekend, that's where you would find me. And so I knew right away that that was my thing, tinkering, or at least what we would now call tinkering. My dad would just tell me and my sister, just come to the garage with me, right? And so we would go in there, and we got to pick up tools. We got to know how that tool worked. We got to see him in real time put together or take apart an engine, and then ask questions about putting it back together. So when growing up through school, I was always good at school, did all those things, had no idea that mechanical engineering was even a thing until my senior year, when I was in a program and they introduced us to all different types of engineers and engineering. And I thought, this is where I need to go. And so I was right though. So I had no idea really what it entailed, but taking the classes, going through it, it was probably predestined, but I'm glad that I did.
Clearly, you had a lot of hands-on experience with mechanical engineering. So kind of going on that, if someone was interested in pursuing mechanical engineering, what pathway would they have to take to achieve it? So what education would they need to acquire? What education did you personally acquire? And what other steps would they have to take?
Oof, okay. I would tell a person, if you think that mechanical engineering is your thing. And so now let's sort of talk through what mechanical engineering, the offerings under mechanical engineering. So I don't know if you guys know, but it is the broadest of all of the engineers, or all of the engineering majors, right? So you can go into manufacturing, you can go into process engineering, and there's all this gray area in between. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always be getting up in ceilings, getting your hands dirty or your hair dirty, or you don't get to wear heels to work if you're, if that's your thing. You can do all of those things because it runs the gamut of things. My first job was at a train car part manufacturing plant, and then I ended up doing HVAC piping and plumbing, where I was sitting in a nice big office building downtown. And if I wanted to go see the process, I could, but I didn't necessarily have to. So I went from working in a plant to walking through a plant every day to sort of in a big old high-rise building. And everywhere in between there. So it's not a linear path. If you feel like this is your area, there's somewhere in here where you fit in, whether you know, any of those areas in there, do make sure that you are continuing to study and broaden your skills and gain more skills. And I would tell you this, if you weren't just a mechanical engineer, but any engineer, keep your skills up, because transitions happen really fast, right? The industry changes every day. Technology changes every day. So keep your skills up, be sharp, read, study, ask questions. These things will help you along the way. There aren't, engineering isn't an exact science. It is always changing and growing, and you need to be adaptable to be able to change within it. And even if you're going into it, that means textbooks, that means going out for opportunities. So the sky's the limit, really.
Perfect, thank you. Currently my older brother is going to energy engineering, and he's working from home, which was very eye-opening because I didn't expect that you could work from home with engineering. So definitely with what you mentioned, especially you also mentioned some of your projects. What would have been your most memorable, or the one that first comes to your head? Which one was the most memorable project?
Okay, so I worked for a company here where I am, and they were in charge of doing fiber optics before fiber optics wasn't, you know, like a thing. So they were sort of cutting edge, and I'm dating myself just a bit, just so y'all know. Don't think I'm old, but I'm just saying. And so they had this really old machine, and by old I mean this machine had to be about 40 years old when I looked at it. So you can imagine how old it is now. And so my first job was, at first they wanted me to dismantle this machine. And let me tell you, this machine, so I'm 5'8". This machine was taller than me and half of like another regular sized person, right? So it was very tall. And then it made two of me. So it's like this huge thing, right? They were like, we want you to dismantle it. We want you to measure all the parts. We want you to put it back together. And basically, we don't know why it's broken. So that was like my whole job, right? And I was like, this is going to take me years. This is going to take me years. But they did have some specs that I was able to review and sort of get down to the crux of the problem, and then design a part that I had to design a part, because again, the specs were so old, and we didn't have some of the, you know, it was just like, we're going to have to make this work. We're going to have to see if aluminum can work here, if it's steel, what kind of steel, can we put a screw here? What does that do? It was a lot of work to see what would make this thing be able to run. But it was probably the most fun I've had on any project that I've worked on since then, because it was just so out of the box.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Kind of moving away from mechanical engineering and more towards STEM in general.
Sure.
So becoming a successful person in STEM is a rigorous challenge alone. And however, being a woman of color in that field, which still has a great lack of diversity, must have been an added difficulty. So we want to ask, what struggles or obstacles did you personally encounter along your journey in STEM, and how did you overcome these roadblocks?
So the truth of the matter is I don't know if I've overcome them yet. I'm still a Black woman, mechanical engineering, and there's still too few of us. And so there's still a need for people like me out here being an advocate for us. And so that means that there's a lack somewhere. So I'm not sure that I've completely overcome it yet. What I would tell you is, if you are me sitting in classrooms being the first and the only, or the only, and whether that's a woman in general or you're a woman of color, is really do try to seek out support. Many campuses these days have NSBE chapters or HESB chapters, which are Hispanic Society of Engineering, or Black Society of Black National Black Society of Engineers. And so seek out others who look like you, who can help support you, who know what the struggle is. And SWE is also Society of Women Engineers. That was an excellent group that I found some level of support in. I think you need it. This journey is not easy. There are still old time stereotypes to be overcome. There's still thought processes and thought patterns about what an engineer looks like that will come up at odd times. There are combinations of people, thoughts, feelings, and ideas about what it is a woman can and can't do that will try to hinder and hold you back. And honestly, this is a piece that people don't talk about. Some of those people are also women. And so you have to almost be convicted in the idea that this is what you want to do. This is not one of those, I think I'm going to try it out kind of things, because the journey is difficult. So you almost have to know this is what it is I want to do when I grow up.
Perfect. Thank you. That was a really great response. How would you show to others that STEM can be more inclusive and that more people of different diversities can go to STEM?
So I think doing what we are doing right now, having the conversation, showing people need to see themselves, right? So that's the rallying cry. So we're out here, we being women engineers, women in STEM in general, we're out here, we're doing some wonderful, great, phenomenal things. We probably should do a better job at advertising for ourselves. Our corporations, companies, whoever we're working for needs to put us on, give us the opportunity to showcase our work in various forms. So it's one thing for people within the industry to know, like, she's great, she's wonderful, she's doing these things. But if we hope to inspire little girls who look like me or look like you, they have to see us. And so that's what I would tell you to do, is that we must be intentional about making sure that other people get to see us in whatever way we decide. I use my social media. I don't wait for my business industry or partners to do it. I do my own. And not because I think like I'm great, but because I recognize that I could be influential in helping some girl somewhere say, okay, if she can do it, so can I. I want to know her story, and I want to be able to follow her path, the path that she set. So that's what I would tell you to do. Do your own. Don't wait for your company. They're probably not going to do it.
Thank you for sharing that. And so I kind of just want to go like deeper into that, because there is still a large racial, gender, and socioeconomic gap in STEM. So as a global society, like, how can we close this gap and make STEM accessible to all, especially minority groups?
Woo! How much time you got? How much time we got here? The first thing we should really do is, I think there really needs to be a broad across the board acknowledgement that there is a dearth, right, of minority participation in STEM. I think some people are getting there. Some people are still like, I don't know. But everybody has this, there's been this big push for diversity, equity, inclusion. So it's like, okay, we're going to highlight the one Black person or the one Hispanic person we have, and we're going to, and we'll use that and say, oh no, we're diverse, right? And then there was someone, I can't remember what company it was, earlier part of this year, who basically came out and said, we can't find any qualified minority candidates. And like all of these organizations were like, really? Because we have a whole database. Like, but nobody asked us, right? And so there needs to be an overall acknowledgement that first, yes, that there is a problem, and there are people and organizations out there who set up for this. Like we know our folks, right? We have, at this point, we found each other. So use us. We're here for that very purpose. We want to work. We want to do great things. So there's that. Within companies, you really need to do a deep dive as to why and how you got here. Some of it may just be an organic thing, like people hire people. you generally hire people who look like you. Like that's across the board. No joke, no shade to that, right? You generally hire people who look like you. So you have to be intentional about hiring a diverse group of people into your business. The benefits far outweigh the negatives. There's going to be growing pains in any company, especially when you bring in people from different cultures with different beliefs, and they know things differently. They understand things differently, but there's beauty there too. So there needs to be some recognizing that is what needs to happen there. And then we have to give it time, because of course change can happen fast, but it's also slow. So we really need to, it's one thing to ask, to hire a lot of diverse people into your organization, but you got to give it time for them to settle in, everybody to settle in, people to settle down and other people to settle in, to see the magic happen. So this is not going to be an overnight, one of those overnight success stories. I have a friend of mine who says that she's an 8-year overnight success. And I laugh when she says that, but I'm like, she's probably right. She did it, the way in which her success came. It wasn't, people just discovered her overnight, really from a tweet. But she'd been plugging away and doing the work for so long, and then got discovered. And I think that's what's going to prove itself out. And what we see going on now is all of us have to be in on the process, though. This is not I'll just work on it here and I'll get back to you guys later. We all have to be a part of the process.
Thank you. So you also mentioned a bunch of your projects that you're working on for STEM. I may have stalked some of them, such as your interviews. Can you tell us more about them, what they are, so that more people can visit and learn more about the work that you do?
Oh, okay. I love this part. So you can find my children's books. Both of my children's books are on Amazon. ABC Engineering. It is a STEM book for the little babies, and you will find little kids that look just like you in this book. It's teaching the students or the children their ABCs using engineering terminology. I love it. Why not, right? Engineers have their own vocabulary. Some of the words are a little clunky and a little weird. You probably haven't heard of them before, and some of them you have, but you don't define them the same in engineering, which I think gives it a fun little twist. But if we can give a 3-year-old an iPhone and they can play games, then we can teach them engineering technology, right? Engineering terms. So that's the first book. The second book is fairly new. I think it's only been out for about 6 weeks. Now it's called London Gets Curious, and London Gets Curious is about a little brown girl who's having a conversation with her TT, who happens to be a mechanical engineer. You guys see where I'm going with it? But they have this conversation where she gets introduced to 10 STEM careers, and some of them are a little quirky. There's a drone pilot in there. There is a game developer in there. So we talk about what happens within these type of careers. And so London is trying to decide what she wants to be when she grows up, because, every now and then we get asked that question. So those are the two STEM children's book. You can find them on Amazon. Thank you for your support in advance. You could go to my website and find out more about my STEM Power Hour, where I try to help minority women in STEM who are really in the thick of it, who don't know necessarily what things to do, how to act in spaces that weren't, they weren't created for them. And so sometimes they find themselves in sticky situations, not of their own making. And I try to really use those coaching programs and consulting programs to really help them think through their long range plans, and then talk through like, hey, this is what you can do tomorrow. And then my website is drtoshia.com, and Toshia is spelled Toshia. So it's drtoshia.com. You can go there and you can see all my offerings. Last is my podcast, which I love my podcast. It is probably the best thing I've done for myself, but hopefully for other people as well, called Stimming in Stilettos. because of course the idea of a woman in any type of STEM careers, like there's a look and a feel when you think about that in your mind, and it doesn't look like a woman who likes to dress up and have her hair done. So stemming in stilettos is all about telling the stories of minority women in STEM. And so you can go on and you can meet about 52 different women who have agreed to be interviewed. I don't even call it an interview. It's more like a conversation they're having with me about their STEM journey and how they got to do the things that they are doing currently and what lessons they learned along the way. Because of course, you know, if you've already learned it, there's no reason for me to learn it. So that's the whole gist of the podcast. And those are just a few of the things that I'm doing right now. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
So you're not only a podcast host, an author, a speaker, but you're also a STEM leader and leadership coach. So I just wanted to ask, what does it take to be a successful leader in STEM?
Ooh, okay. So that's a good question. I think because I think that is actually that might be the question of the hour. I think being a leader in STEM requires you to have a certain level of knowledge of people, a certain level of knowledge of like technical knowledge of like whatever area you're in, but a certain level of knowledge about how you want to lead. Leading isn't one of those universal things where it's like everybody does it, right? Everybody doesn't do it. And it looks different in different spaces, and recognizing that is a part of good leadership skills. A good leader can only lead people who are willing to be followed. If a leader doesn't have followers, he or she is just taking a walk. And so you want to be, I always say, I want it to be the type of leader that people wouldn't quit. So one of my favorite sayings is that people don't quit organizations, people quit people. And so as a leader, you don't want people to quit you because you've just been so bad at it, right? So that I keep that saying in my mind as I'm leading people. Like, so I'm always asking for feedback, and that's a good quality for a leader to have. Hey, how did that work for you? What could I have done better? What things would you like to see from me, to see if I have them to give? And one of the things I've always found to really work is honesty and transparency. People know that you're not perfect. You make mistakes. You've gotten it wrong a few times. You have to let people know that. There has to be some acknowledgement that, yeah, I got it. I didn't do that. That wasn't right. I didn't do that correctly. I want to do it better next. And the acknowledgement that, of their role in whatever occurred. Right. So I think that those really help in STEM because mistakes happen all the time. And even though we account for them, like we know that they're going to occur, but there's also the part where there has to be blame for why that happened. And so sort of trying to knock that down with the understanding that, yes, they're going to happen. And so we're going to fix them as a collective unit, as opposed to doing a deep dive into, well, Steve didn't, and then Nancy said, we're not going to do that. We understand things happened, and then we're going to work as a collective unit to fix it. So I think that works best.
Thank you. That's actually very informative for us, especially since we're leading an organization. So it's good to know how to lead others. You also mentioned, we asked you about what led you to pursue mechanical engineering. What led you to continue? What motivated you to continue doing it? Like, there's ups and downs. What made you go through those downs and continue on the pathway that you did?
I think that I really still like getting my hands dirty. I mean, if I'm being honest about it, I think I really like the creative, collective design process that's a part of the work. I really like seeing or being a part of the fix, you know what I mean? And so that brings something to me that I haven't been able to get anyplace else. And so yeah, I'll probably be hanging in here doing it for a little bit longer.
So it's without a doubt that you dedicate much of your time and effort into empowering girls to follow their dreams in STEM, whether it be through your books, podcasts, etc. So what specifically motivates you to help young women pursue fields in STEM?
I decided really early on that I did not want, and still do not want, anyone to have some of the experiences that I've had as a woman engineer. I do not think that it sets a positive precedent for the industry in general. And so it's one of those things where I think about it. When I think about it, I'm like, there has to be more of us here, so that we're seeing us is not is not a specialty. You know, it's normal to see us. And so that's been my whole push this whole time, is to get more women into STEM, make sure that we set them up to be successful, prepare them for the industry while we change the industry from the inside. So it's a both and kind of thing. I will be doing this work until I can't. I will be, I just am, because while we're seeing some changes, the changes aren't quick. I think for minority women in STEM, I think we're at like 1%, 2% of the engineering population, or STEM population, or I say engineering population. Women in STEM is about at 8% of the population, something like that I read the other day. But 8% of a population, come on, y'all. When women make up 49% of the working world, we make up half of the working world, but we're only 8% of STEM. For real? That doesn't seem off to anyone. So I'll be doing this work until I can't.
Thank you. Personally, I don't think I have any more questions, Sandra.
Oh, I just kind of wanted to ask, do you have a quote or saying that you work by or reflect back to?
Yeah. This one is, it has really saved me in a lot of different ways. And I wish I coined it. But it was actually said by Iyanla Vanzant, who is sort of a leadership enlightenment guru. But she literally said on a show once, when you see crazy coming, cross the street. And it has literally saved me. So like when I have an idea or a thought, or I meet someone, or I'm in a situation, and I can take a look and do the assessment, and I'm like, this is crazy. Then I decide to walk away. Because it saved me. Because of course, I don't know if you guys know, but sometimes working in the midst of chaos and craziness can make you crazy, in a proverbial sense, not like, but and nobody needs to, and I wouldn't advocate for anyone to work in a situation where that's so. So that phrase has saved me so much time, money, and angst. So I would advise you to adopt it as one of yours.